Hello everyone, my name is Ben and welcome to another TV Parts Today teardown tutorial. In today's video we are going to be working on the unit behind me on the table. It is a Sony model XBR-75X850E. We're going to be teaching you how to get the back off as well as how to remove the boards from this unit. If you have any questions, you can give us a call at 930-212-1975 or you can send us an email to info@tvpartstoday.com. And let's get into it. All right, so we have the back of the unit laid out here. These Sony units usually will have 2 or 3 different sizes of screws. So what I would suggest is taking a piece of paper, making a diagram of the back of the television, and then when we take a screw out, we can just set it on the piece of paper right where it goes. That way we know which screws go into which holes when we're putting everything back together. So to get started, we're gonna start right here with this little door. There's one screw that we need to get out. Now this plate will just kind of come up and out. We can shuffle this right off of the power cord. Put that off to the side. This clip right here is going to be on the power supply board. This will need to come out. We just depress the little lever with our finger. Comes right out. That's the little lever right there. We can set off the whole thing to the side. Now we're going to hit all of the rest of the screws going all the way around this, and then this back plate should just come right off of here. Now that the screws are out, we should do one more pass just to make sure that everything is out of there. There are some small fins on the back we can just lift up on. And you will notice that there's a little bit of resistance. We don't want to pull up on this too much to risk fracturing this. So we just get it up and over all of the components and then slide it up. And once we get this off of here, this will give us access to the boards in the back of the unit. First, we are going to be removing the main board from this unit. The first step is going to be to get all of the connections that are along the side here out and away. We can make ourselves a little bit more room just by getting this plastic flashing piece off. Just comes right off of there. We can set that off to the side. So let's start working on these clips. This one right here is going to have a bar that sets across the ribbon cable connection. We're going to want to push that down and depress it. Using the plastic tab, we can just pop that ribbon cable connection out. The next one down the line here is going to have a small black rectangular button on the right and left side of the connection. We're going to push those down and we're going to pop that right out of there. This guy right here, we're going to depress the flap that's on the back with our fingernail and it comes right out. Same thing with this guy. We're going to push that little tab down and it comes right out. This one is going to have the tabs on the right and left side of the connection. We're going to want to depress both of those to release the latches. And it comes right out. This is a micro USB connection, slides right out, no problem. Let's go ahead and get the coax off first. The coax connection isn't necessarily attached to the board, but it does slide into a little slot, so we'll want to be careful with that. And you can see it just kind of slides right out. It's not necessarily affixed or attached in any other way than this connection and a couple screws. Let's get the rest of the screws and the board should come away. All right, after we get the screws away, we should be able to lift this up, and there's a little bit of adhesive it feels on the back, so we just want to be very careful. Gently go all the way around the board just to kind of loosen it up. And that's the main board. Next up is the power supply board. We're going to follow the same steps that we did with the main board. We're going to get all the connections from around the board, away from it, and then we'll work on the screws. These are all 3 looking like they are almost exactly the same. This one right here has a small lever on the back that we want to depress with our fingernail or our finger, and it just walks right away from the board. Same thing with this guy. We're going to depress the small lever with our finger, and we're going to pull that connection out of there. Same thing here. Depress that lever, comes right out. Let's get these screws and the power supply should come away. After we've got the screws, this should just lift up and away from the chassis, and that is the power supply board. All right, last up is the TCON board. And the TCON board is pretty buried. There is a metal plate sitting over the TCON board, and then there is the IR sensor and Wi-Fi board that are actually connected on top of that plate. So we are going to start at the very top. Let's go ahead and get the IR sensor and Wi-Fi board off of here, and then we will go from there. After we get those screws out of there, this should come free. Let's get these clips here. This is the antenna for the Wi-Fi board. Let's very gently pop that off of its little clip there. Do be careful with these little golden tabs here. They can come off of the antenna. We do not want that. This clip, we're just going to depress the small lever on the back with our finger or fingernail. And it comes away from the board. Now when we flip this over, there is one more connection right here that we're going to depress with our fingernail once again. We're going to pop it right out of there. We can just set this whole thing off to the side, and let's make ourselves a little bit more room by getting some of this tape up and away and getting some of these cords out of here. A little bit more space there. So let's go ahead and get these 3 connections. This guy we're just going to depress with our finger or our fingernail, and it just slides right away from the board. These 2 LVDS connections are going to have buttons on the right and left side that we're going to want to depress, and then the whole thing comes away from the TCON board. Same thing here. Now that we've got most of the connections and clips away, let's go ahead and get all of the screws that are connecting this metal plate to the chassis. Let's get those out, and then we can have access to the TCON board. All right, now that we got all the screws out, this metal plate should come up and away. It does feel like there's a little bit of adhesive maybe stuck to the top of the TCON board, so we do want to be gentle. There it goes. Now we can pull this off and set it to the side. We do have 2 more ribbon cable connections that we're going to need to get away from the TCON board, and 2 screws. So these ribbon cable connections, we can just pop up the little black tab with our finger or fingernail, and they should just walk right out of there. Now we just have the 2 screws here, and this should come out. Once those last 2 screws are away, the TCON board should just come right out of here. It does feel like there's a little bit of adhesive underneath there, so we do want to be careful right there on that pad, and that's the TCON board. All right, that's going to do it for today's video. Once again, if you have any more questions, you can give us a call at 930-212-1975 or send us an email to info@tvpartstoday.com. And don't forget, like the video, leave us a comment, share it with your friends, and we will see you next time.